Peace, peace, family. How's everybody feeling?
Welcome, welcome into the space. Week one.
Wow, week one, week one. I, I'll tell you this. I've been looking forward to it.
Me too. I've missed our space,
I have. I
missed
have.
our community,
Yeah.
missed this frequency of, being able to tap in weekly and glean so much from each other in this environment. We see some greetings are coming in the chat.
Yes.
Peace and greetings, peace and greetings. Welcome. Thanks for hopping on camera, Sister Kavita. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome, welcome. All
So
right.
week
Yeah.
one. Well, right. Last week was the orientation, but week one for the first week of sacred relationships,
Yeah.
the divine collective book study, and we are going to be diving into right this book, this work, the alchemy of shadow work. So I'm excited to get that started and see what comes out of that.
Yeah. Likewise, likewise. So we know that for those of us that have actually gone through the first season together, right? With diving into Sacred Woman and then also Man Heal Thyself, we did a lot of light work, right? A lot of finding our inner light. And what was interesting about it all is that James and I were essentially each week really just kind of delivering on whatever came up for us, whatever the downloads were for us. And so it's been a lot of fun to kind of go back and look at those materials and the things that came up for us weekly that we shared here and then build on it so that we're also able to focus on the balance, which would be shadow work. Shadow work. So we're going to be doing both this season. So it's a real treat. And I'm excited because we have never done this before, James and I ourselves, and we get to do it with you all together as a collective. And so I don't know, I feel giddy about it. I feel giddy about it.
Yeah, definitely excited. Definitely excited
So
about it. No, you said that like we've done the light work, right? And awareness sometimes I believe is so important. So we went and did the light work, but there wasn't like an emphasis on the balance to it, right? By bringing this together, I feel like that's going to be an important balance this season as we go through it to understand. Yeah.
So we are going to dive right in, family. We're going to dive right in. We see that we have some new folks in the space. So welcome, welcome, welcome. We're happy you're here. And to all of our returning folks in the space, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're happy to journey with you again.
Yes.
And to those who'll be watching this on recording, welcome, welcome, welcome into the space. We hold space, we keep space for everyone always. And so we will be sharing the recording on this for those who weren't able to join tonight. So with that said, we're actually going to get started with a meditation so that we can all get grounded. And it's a little bit different than what we did in the prior season because we would traditionally kind of just hop right into our affirmations and setting up the intention. But recognizing that it is Sunday, right? It is the evening, and energetically, we may have already been moving through so much. So, just to get really centered, really grounded, we're going to start with meditation. And every week, we're going to start with the meditation that's actually a part of the alchemy of shadow work, book. So, these will be meditations that are available to you. They're right on YouTube. You can listen to them daily so that you can remain in the frequency of what we're studying for that week because they are very intentionally prescribed for each chapter within the Alchemy of Shadow Work book. All right. So, with that said, we're going to go ahead and invite you all to get grounded wherever you are, just to really sink into your bodies.
It's been a long week, right?
It's been a week. It's been a week. It's been even a weekend of busyness for many of us, right? And so just really centering, finding your breath, becoming aware of it. And as you do that, we're going to ask you to just take 3 deep breaths in and out. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and shift us into our recorded meditation. And visualization. Okay. Close your eyes and take a deep breath, allowing the air to fill your lungs and expand your chest. As you exhale, feel the tension leave your body. Imagine yourself standing on the edge of a tranquil lake at dawn, the mist rising gently from the surface. The water is still, reflecting the sky's soft hues of pink and gold. This is a place of safety, a sanctuary where your true self can be fully revealed without judgment. With each breath, allow yourself to feel the gentle warmth of the morning sun on your skin, slowly melting away the fear that has kept your heart guarded. Picture your heart as a flower bud, tightly closed. As you continue to breathe deeply, the flower begins to open, petal by petal, revealing its vibrant colors to the world. This is your vulnerability, a beautiful and necessary part of your being. In this moment, affirm to yourself, I am safe to be seen. I am safe to be vulnerable. My openness is my strength. Holding this feeling, knowing that just like the flower, your vulnerability is a gift that allows others to see your true essence. When you're ready, slowly open your eyes, carrying this sense of openness into your day. Shame.
Wow, I needed that.
Yeah.
I needed that. That was.
It's for me too, getting grounded.
Yeah.
Really present into the space and with intention.
Right.
We're gonna hop in. We're gonna hop in. All right, family. Let's shift to our assignment this week. All right, here we go. We are going to share again. Here we go. I'm excited. I feel excited. I feel excited.
I feel excited. I feel grounded. That meditation was beautiful. No matter how many times you listen to it, and you pull from it each time.
Yeah. Let's fill our way. Okay, where do we go? We got present. Here. Okay. Just a moment. It's on. Send you. Okay. All right. Let us know when you can see that. Let's see. Just gonna put it on full screen. And give us a thumbs up when you can see the screen. Let's do it this way. And share. Okay. Let us know when you can see that. Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Sister Joycelyn. So she can see it. She can see the screen. Okay. And full screen. Here we go. All right, family. So this is our topic this week. So we get started each season and actually getting grounded in the understanding of what it means to have wounded energy. And so by wounded energy, we mean imbalance, right? We mean wounded energy in terms of masculine energy or feminine energy and what that means and how it shows up in our life. Feel free to, if at any moment you feel like there's a question you have, write it down, put it in the chat. If you feel like there's some momentum building around a specific topic, but there's something that you would love to shift us into so that we can talk about that too. We don't want you to lose the thought. So definitely feel free to jot it down, drop it in the chat so that we can actually make sure that we bring that build into this collective discussion too. All right, so we'll get started. So as we've shared in prior sessions, right, our overview is always the idea that we aim to discover our true selves, to free our traumas, and to be free of our traumas and past conditioning, and that our intention is for this journey to really encourage our own self-exploration while also connecting in the alignment of both the masculine and the feminine that lies within each of us.
So we want to set our intentions today. Our intention is definitely to build a community in balance with the masculine and the feminine energies. We think that's very important to make sure that that's pointed out of what we're trying to build here.
Yeah.
We aspire to end that generational trauma in our communities through healing and growth.
Ashe. Ashe. Okay.
All right. So as always,
Yes.
we're going to open up with repeat and recall. So if you will unmute and say this with us, I will say line and then you guys can repeat that line. That way we are opening the way for today.
Okay.
All right. I am open to the wisdom within me.
I am open to the wisdom within me.
I embrace the self-discovery.
I embrace the path of self-discovery.
I am ready to strengthen my bonds with others.
I am ready to strengthen my bonds with others.
Together, we embark on the sacred journey.
Together we embark on this sacred journey. Ashe.
Okay. So family, we're going to dive right in. We have plenty to cover. So opening the way, right, in terms of our discussion with regard to wounded man and wounded woman. I'll start with sharing wounded woman, and then I'll toss it over to James for wounded man. The wounded woman, right, represents emotional and psychological wounds that women may carry related to their reproductive and creative potential. And we'll talk more about how those things align with the wound. This can include issues such as fertility challenges, past traumas related to childbirth or reproductive health, creative blockages, feeling disconnected from your own natural nurturing abilities and creativity. Healing the wounded reproductive and creative wound involves acknowledging and working through these wounds and in order to restore them, right? And restore a sense of empowerment, creativity, and self-compassion. And in the next slide, we'll actually talk more about real life scenarios that bring this forward into our lives and how it's impacting us.
Right, right. And the wounded man represents emotional and psychological wounds that men may carry. Not may, actually we do carry, right? These wounds can be the result of various life experiences, societal expectations, or personal traumas, which we will get into more of and share. They may manifest as issues related to self-esteem, relationships, emotional expression, like I will say sometimes lack of emotional expression, and personal identity. Healing the wounded man involves addressing and resolving these emotional wounds to promote personal growth and well-being.
Okay. So as we go forward, here are some of the ways that this energy shows up. And the reason why we refer to it as wounded masculine, wounded feminine, and as energy rather than people, because it is what it is, right? It is actual energy. All men and women have a balance, right, of some sort within them of both of these energies, whether it be masculine energy or feminine energy. And the percentages may vary for each of us, right? A traditional natural woman, right? Let's say we're using that archetype. The feminine energy will be the dominant trait, right? Where perhaps it is 60% or more, right, of their makeup. And let's say if we're talking about your traditional male, traditional man, natural in the natural sense, the masculine would be then the dominant, right? But we recognize that there are scenarios in life that can alter that percentage. There are scenarios in life that can have us, operating in energies that are not necessarily the natural resting energy we would like to be in, but it's the energy that we are circumstantially showing up in based on how life is lifing, right? So starting with the wounded feminine energy, it can show up as a lack of emotional validation, which means that you are perhaps in some ways, seeking to be emotionally validated by someone else outside of yourself, right? Validating your own opinion sometimes may not feel like enough. Validating your own emotions may not feel like enough. You need someone to agree, whether it be a partner, whether it be a parent, whether it be a friend. You need someone to show you that they in some way recognize and validate what you're feeling, right? This can mean that there's a lack of an inner emotional validation, right? Then the next could be exposure to gender inequality and stereotyping. So early on in our childhood, many of us, right, may have actually experienced where adults in our life or older people in our life pretty much told us what boxes we need to be in, right? So this may look like colors, right? Boys wear this color, girls wear that color. Or it could show up in chores and assignments within the home. These are the boys' assignments and these are the girls' assignments. It could show up in toys in school or the playground, right? Those that are commonly known as male versus female. And having exposure to these spaces and external messaging can be shaping how we see some of these gender splits. So we could either identify or not identify with what others have actually provided in terms of messaging for us in the gender space. And then the next would be witnessing domestic struggles. So, and I know many of these are going to be things that we can talk about at length, right? But witnessing perhaps even other feminine energy in your space, whether it be a mother, a grandmother, aunts, outside of the home even, but witnessing women who seemingly were normalizing struggle, right? Normalizing being in their survival mode. And so being raised in a space, whether it be in your home or outside of your home, but just in your proximity, where you began to normalize for yourself that martyrdom, right? Meaning like being over sacrificial of your time, lowering or not having any set boundaries, right? Just constantly being in a sense of overwhelm. If you witness women who were balancing the workplace and balancing home and not necessarily asking for what they needed, right? Asking for help when they needed it. And just kind of struggling through it and being burnt out at times. That witnessing of domestic struggles could have felt very normal. And therefore, when we now grow into our own womanhood, we begin to normalize some of the same. Right. So this is also considered wounded feminine energy, right? The last then being victimhood. And I say the last as in terms of these very general broad strokes on what we're calling these experiences, because I'm sure that when we open this up, to the collective here, we'll have more that we can even add to this list. But these are those that are very pronounced, right? Those that we see far too frequently, right? So the wounded feminine can also show up as victimhood, where it's the woe is me, frequently have this internal sob story. Some of us may share it with others. Some of us don't necessarily share it, but it's replaying inside of ourselves and just kind of feeling like, oh, life is tough. It's tough being me. It's hard being me. It's hard being a woman. It's hard to be in relationships. It's hard being a mother. It's hard being a leader. We kind of tell ourselves that we are in this space of victimhood and needing to then reclaim our power again, reclaim our voice in these spaces and our ability to make them what we would like them to be. And so victimhood also plays a part. And the reason, again, I'm emphasizing that this is wounded feminine energy is because this can exist within a man or a woman. Right. So you can be a man who's lacking emotional validation and looking for your partner, your family, someone to validate your emotions. You can be a man who witnessed, struggles and now seemingly is a very sacrificial lamb, so to speak, right? Or you could be a man who's always finding yourself on a complaint narrative about your life, in terms of things are happening to you as if you're not empowered to change them. So these are not specific in terms of anatomy. It's just about energy. So it's really about where you find yourself on this spectrum between the two, and that being the North Star then for where you want to start to light your fire of change.
Yeah. Definitely, because as you're saying it, I attach to some of those things, and you start thinking when you're talking about it, and as you're speaking, I'm thinking to myself about these different things that relate to what you're saying, even with emotional validation, the things that you've been through in your life, and even something that you said as far as normalizing these things, right? Because I don't know how long I've been through life without understanding that this is not the real reality, because it was normalized. I didn't know any better, so I'm thinking this is normal in many things. Even when we're talking about the wounded masculine energy, and the pressure to be strong and suppress emotions, I didn't know that's what I was taught to do. I'm just going by what my father told me to do when I'm younger. And the same thing you saw about with the colors and different things. My father would say, what is an emotion? Like stop crying. What does crying do for you? That doesn't fix the issue. That doesn't resolve it. So suck it up and stop it, right? These different things you keep suppressing. You don't realize that transfers from one level to one age to a different age, and that becomes normal to you. And as we go keep speaking about this, it's something when you open your eyes and you finally realize, wait a minute, I never realized that this is what was happening to me. Now you start going back, playing your whole life and starting to understand, wow, look how many times that this trauma, this was given to me. And not only that, now I passed it along, because I'm thinking I'm being, what I was taught. And I passed it on to my sons,
Right.
Be strong, stop crying, suck it up, be a man, like all these different things, instead of even, having a nurturing side of you, the other side, right? To find out why somebody's feeling that emotion, and get your kids or anybody to open up and attach to the emotions that they're feeling. Forced maturity of being this happens, being the man of the house at a young age. It happens to a lot of us. And even myself, it wasn't so much being the man of my house. I said this many of times before. that my father at 14 said to me, and I always replayed in my head because I could see it like it was yesterday. There's only one man of the house. And he said, if you feel like you're a man, there's a door. And at 14, I said, okay, I'm going through the door and I'm out, because I felt like I knew what I wanted, and it wasn't in my house. And I'm like, all right, you know what, fine. Because you only want it your one way. So being the man in the house doesn't necessarily mean your house. It could be anywhere, right? So you was forced into this being on your own, and now you are trying to figure things out. And it also leads to, the lack of affirmative male role models, right? So me, like, I'm going out into the world, now I'm looking for these models, these role models. And depending on what path you take, you're going to find role models, but are they the right role models? Right? You're going to find, especially a lot of us have been in these environments where you get out there, and I don't want to say that people prey on you, but they do, right? Because, even like in my
like knowingly or unknowingly.
Knowing and unknowingly. A lot of people, they think even that they're doing a great thing sometimes by trying to be that role model for you, trying to be there for you. Me as a young kid at 14, there were a lot of, as I look back, there was a lot of people that tried to step in and be a role model for me, right? The best that they could. Now, some of the things that I took from that, because maybe they have not been aware themselves, right, of what was going on, passed things to me as well. Later on in life, as I started opening up and understanding what was happening, I started realizing how many things I pulled from different people that showed up in my relationship. Different traits, different things that I then started doing in my relationship, not realizing, like, wow, I took that from that other person just by seeing it when I was younger. Even with like societal racism and hypervigilance, like all these things, when you start getting out into the world and really understanding, because sometimes when you're young, you live in a box. It could be the box of your home, the box of your block, the box of just your friends and family. So you kind of stay in that box for a little while. You don't really understand these different racisms that's happening out here until you start getting out into the world, and you start realizing, wait a minute, things ain't exactly the same as it is in my neighborhood. People look at me a little bit different. They say things different, and you may pick up on certain things that people say, and you be like, wait a minute, I think that was towards me. Or just starting to see how other people kind of separate, right? Where there's different, I don't want to say cliques, but people, kind of gravitate to who they gravitate to, right? And you may not necessarily relate with certain people because of the box that you've been in. But again, as you go along and you become more aware of these things, it gives you a chance to sit back and I like what you said again about normalizing, understand what is normal, what is your reality compared to the reality that was taught to you.
Right. Ashe. So at this time, feel free to raise your hands so that, because we want to get your input on how these words are landing on you, right? So one thing we like to do in this space is definitely, once we start throwing things out, take a temperature check and really get a sense of what's coming up, because this is why this is a collective. The messages that will pour through us, that'll pour through you, it's for all of us. So we really count on you for your shares, because it's going to resonate with someone. It is for you, but it is also for someone. And sometimes it may not even be for you, and it's for someone else in the space. So feel free to raise your hands, and then we'll pivot and give some shout outs. And while you start thinking about how this idea of wounded masculine energy or wounded feminine energy is landing on you, I'll share even my own vulnerability story. For me, I recognized that my wounded feminine journey included a lot of damsel in distress, let's call it, right? So in growing up, not having a father. So my father, many of you know now at this point, but my father was killed when my mom was actually pregnant with me. I had a lot of uncles, and I had my grandfathers. I had men that were in my close proximity and in my family. But no one necessarily stood in as my father, right? How could they, right? But they did the best they could. And so what I recognized is that there was this inner need that I felt at times to really want to have a man just save me. And I really didn't understand that about myself so much until I started to witness my daughter growing up with a dad, right? My daughter growing up and having her dad here every day with her. And I recognized from a very early age that there is a part of her that always feels protected when her dad is in the space, right? There's a part of her that can be very carefree, even more so when her dad is in the space. And so when I witnessed her, I was witnessing myself, but in a very different way. I was witnessing that there were moments that I actually didn't have in my life where I would feel that. And so I had this inner yearning and wanting of that. So much so that I would say my love language was advocacy. Having a man, right, swoop in and say, I got it, I got you, you're going to be okay, was very, very important to me, very important to me, because it was something I just felt like I was yearning and didn't have. And in a lot of ways, I was looking for emotional validation. Even at times when, let's say, James and I would be in a disconnect or disagreement, and perhaps it was something that he did and I was upset or I was hurt, whatever it is, I'm looking for emotional validation. I'm looking for him to have a exact understanding of how I feel and what I'm experiencing. And it's simply not possible, because everything about what I'm experiencing today has so much more to do with my past than it actually even has to do with what occurred today. The way I perceive what happened today has all of the baggage of everything of all of who I've been all my life in it. So he can't ever, nor can anyone else, right, completely understand my plight, right? Because they haven't lived in my shoes my entire life. So with that said, I did see some hands go up. Sister Kavita, I think I saw your hand go up to share.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi. Yeah, I feel like the whole, like, both sides resonate with me as well. They say when you come into this world, you're as vulnerable as your parents. Like, the same vulnerabilities that they have, you also have. So, like, whatever consciousness level that they're on is kind of like how you come into this world. And so I also left my house at 14. And when, James had mentioned that last season, it kind of like rung a bell for me. But then, I've been doing the inner work. And then when you mentioned it again, I was like, wow, like I was in my masculine. I was like, I gotta go, But, and then like you said, like you find mentors, but are they the right ones, right? So like I carried on a 10-year relationship with someone because it was so um like it communicated to my trauma language, but it was wrapped in a different bow. So it looked prettier, but it was still traumatic experiences that I was having with the mentor. And I let it carry on and carry on and carry on. And it's like, wow, like, and then that goes back to the hero story, right? You just want someone to save you. So then it's like this cycle that you're in, and you're like kind of aware, but you're not sure, where do you leap to, where do you go, like how do you find yourself through this pain, this struggle, this, there's trauma. And it was getting so, like, so normalized for me that I was like, I saw everyone through the lens of trauma. All I could see was like, but where's your trauma? Like, me trying to dig someone else's trauma to help me understand mine. So that's how that resonated with me. Thank you.
That makes so much sense.
Wow.
That makes so much sense. And I love that idea, which is a new one for me, that you shared, Kavita, about how we look at the world through the lenses of our parents, right? Being as vulnerable as they were, because that's the modeling that we've seen. That's a fresh idea. That's a really fresh perspective.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Right.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. And I love what she said, when you start looking at other people and trying to gauge their trauma, like trying to find, like,
where is it? It has
right?
to be
Like,
there.
I know it. I see
Right.
it somewhere in, like
shopping the traumas.
that happens when you start trying to like be, you're becoming more aware of yourself. So now you're looking at others like, wait, hold on. I can see what's going on with you. Right.
Yep.
Wow. Thank you for that share, sister.
Yeah. And things. And Sha and Dre.
Greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
Greetings.
So yes, when Kavita said that about only being as vulnerable as her parents, that really struck me strong. Like it struck a chord for me. Um, for me, what came up is so in both areas, right? But I feel like growing up in wounded masculine energy, being raised by toxic masculinity within the household, there was a lot of pressure for me to suppress my emotions because I never actually felt heard or right, or I felt like I didn't think that I would be heard, so it was no reason for me to say anything anyway, right? So whatever's going to happen is going to happen, so whatever, it doesn't matter how I feel. So I suppressed my emotions and I learned to detach from whatever it is. And I allowed myself to feel, but by myself, right? Wouldn't speak to anyone about it for the most part ever. But as I'm growing older now, I definitely speak my emotions more. But I feel like because I suppressed my emotions so long, that now I'm looking to be emotionally validated,
Yeah.
right? So now that I'm speaking those emotions, I'm looking for the validation. Do you understand? Why aren't you understanding? This is why. And then I always have like a playbook of all the reasons and also all the examples as to why this all makes sense. And I need you to follow me on this journey. And I realize now that this began because there was so long where I didn't say a word.
Yes. Yeah.
I didn't say a word.
Yeah.
So yes, the wounded masculine energy has definitely fueled the wounded feminine for me.
Yeah. You know, as Shah was saying that, and I appreciate that share because it definitely resonates with me too. I recall watching Iyanla Van Zant, and some of us may be familiar with her, and for those of us that are not, so she's an author, speaker, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily women's empowerment that's her play, but I think it's family freedom. You know, I've never heard her phrase it that way, but that's just my observation. She had this show called Fix My Life, and she would go in and meet with families and really help them to uproot some of the underlying issues that were like really at the root of what was just uncomfortable in their relationships. And I always admired her, and I always admired her work. One of the things I once heard her say in an interview was that she recognized in healing with her daughters that she hadn't been the greatest mother, but she had been a damn good father. And I mean, when I tell you, it was just like, talk about emotional validation. That statement for me was emotionally validating because I've had my own, like some of us will have our mother traumas, our father traumas, and it does, you know, it'll vary what we are calling traumatic experiences, right? It's a personal experience. But being raised by a single mother, right? I recognize that in my mom, although she has never said this, right? There may have been times that she felt like she had to shift into her masculine to be in survival in order to protect us. You know, we're all, you know, just women, right? She had two daughters and being a woman herself, right? So I recognize that there was an inner child in me that felt very emotionally validated hearing a mother say and recognize that she maybe, you know, had work to do in the motherhood space, but that she had done a damn good job as a father. And recognizing that she had operated in a masculine energy versus a feminine energy, it was very validating. So, Shad, that just it triggered that recall for me, you sharing what you did, what you stated. So I give thanks for that. I want to make sure I didn't miss any other hands. Did anyone else have, I see in the chat, Sister Alicia said, yes, that resonated with me deep as well. Yeah, yeah. It can resonate with us on our own motherhood journeys. It can resonate with us, you know, in being the child. So yeah. All right. And so James, from your perspective, you know, in terms of wounded masculine energy, when did you recognize it in yourself, do you think?
So I told this story, I think a couple of times. But you know, when I started recognizing it was when I started realizing there was things that were happening and showing up in our relationship, and I didn't know why I felt the way I felt. Wanting this attention and almost needing it, and trying to, get it from you or even other places that wasn't necessarily the best places to get that what I'm looking for. But I didn't know why. Like I had this emptiness inside of me sometimes, and I'm like I never understood it. But again, back to suppressing these emotions. That's what I was taught to do. But then going back to as we did work and understanding that it started when I was very, very young, and my mother, and then it's funny. I'm about to say it. I said my mother left my sister and I when we were little kids, and just left for 4 years and left us with our aunt and our uncle that we really didn't know. And whenever I tell that story, I always say my mother. I never mentioned my father.
Yeah.
I never attached what my mother did. I say my mother did because she was my mother, right? Like, how could my mother? I never even thought about it just now that I never even think about my father.
That gender inequality. Yeah.
That he had a point to play in, especially coming from a marriage where my father was the dominant man, right? So much where he suppressed my mother's voice, back to things that you see and you take with you, right? Because even when I met you, right, I had this vision in my head of what my wife was supposed to be, according to what I saw in my father. He suppressed my mother's voice. So I automatically thought, well, that's what's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
Right.
How'd that work out though?
Yeah, it didn't work out. No, it didn't work out too well. No, actually, it worked out the way it's supposed to. It worked out the way it's supposed to, because I learned a lot from it, right? Because you know what? It would have carried on, right? So if I would have met right, a woman that was okay with me being dominant and suppressing her voice, I would have then passed that on to my daughter and
or
my
sons.
Right. And it's not my growth, right? So but the first time was definitely when I started realizing back then that something I thought that really didn't impact me at all in life, but being so young and being ripped away, like emotionally, from your mother, and I was only 3 at the time, and I can remember the day like it was yesterday. That's how traumatic it was, right? Like it's like engraved in my mind. That was the first time that I can remember really feeling and understanding that, that was
that you had to detach.
Yeah. Like I had to, because in order to get through that moment, like my sister and I cried for I don't know how long, until my aunt came. We was hiding under a bed crying and holding each other. And my aunt, and we don't even know her really, came, you better stop crying and get out from that bed right now. I ain't gonna keep having this. Get out of bed. And you had to like stop, because she was gonna whoop us, right, for crying, because I'm upset that my mother just left and she's not coming back, right? But I had to detach from emotion to survive, and at 3, I became the older, like my emotions, I had to stop, because my sister's crying. Now she's
man of the house.
Right. So I had to be like, hold on, okay, we're gonna be okay. We're gonna get through this. I got it. To the point where like I would take her whoopings and step in and be like, no, don't hit her. Don't hit her, hit me. Like just, and you think about all these different things, how many of these experiences, like how that really impacts you. When you look back at it.
It shapes your psyche, and it becomes the undercurrent of how you just do things, and you don't recognize it. I know for myself, in a lot of ways, I didn't really look at life in terms of survival mode. I didn't really call it that, right? I didn't have that language before. But I recognized it, and I saw women get really depleted all the time and be tired and, frustrated and have to seemingly do all the things. And I associated that with womanhood. Like that's what we do,
Right.
And then this is how the birthing of my book, right, Surrendering to Soft Living, came about for me, because I recognized I never really wanted that. Like I never wanted that life, right? I did not want the life of constantly being against the current.
Right.
I wanted to be able to be in flow. And I had never actually witnessed that. So it was quite scary to try to shift into it, because it meant I had to break away and do it myself, and kind of lead the way in it. So yeah.
Wow.
So is anything coming up for anyone else who would like to share? For the truth and Sister Constance.
Peace and blessings.
Peace and blessings, family. How's
And blessings.
I had one thing that came up, and Truth has another thing. So when you were speaking about when you go into a different area and you might go into a new neighborhood and you have to adapt to that area. So for me, this is gonna go back a little ways, but my wounded feminine was that I grew up, with my father having sole custody of me. So I was going on, I found it easier. I was more comfortable in the masculine jobs versus feminine jobs, doing secretarial or executive assistant or whatever. I liked more when I got to truck driving. But then when I moved out here to Alabama, it's a whole different energy. Like here in Alabama, the even the women that work still have a different feminine energy, but most times they're about that feminine energy of have babies, take care of the family, the serving the husband and the church and this and that. It was just different. So me, I was a lot different when I came out here because I'm coming from the city, which is a different. The women there, even if they are stay-at-home moms, they're still like a little more independent than the ones here in Alabama. And the ones that are at work are definitely more independent and different than the working force women here. So I had to work at finding my feminine flow, with the new, it's like you're in Rome, you got to kind of learn what the Romans do. But we're, you don't have to be like them, but you definitely need to at least observe it, to make sure, because there's been times I've had to make sure I don't get offended because someone else is what they do normally, because that's how they are from being an Alabamian. So that was my part that I wanted to share. That was a good part. So that's been it, dealing with that and feeling isolated out here because not anyone's too much like me out here. Also because again, I'm in an African holistic lifestyle. I'm Christian commission. They don't understand any of that. So
right.
The isolation used to get to me, but because my connection with Nater has become so strong, it filled up that emptiness and helped me learn to heal and start to use my tools and my ancestors. So it closed that gap of feeling isolated. Now I'm just desiring and excited to be amongst our tribe. It set me up for knowing what being around my tribe looks like. So
Ashe, ashe, ashe.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. I love everything about what you just shared, sis. And the thing that stood out for me too was you talking about, learning how not to be offended by the way others do things. Seeing that even for myself in the reverse. I can recall always, being uncomfortable with offending anyone for those reasons, right? So I recognize that the people pleaser in me used to say yes far more often than I really felt a yes in my spirit, because I didn't want to offend, right? And so that was the nudge that just came in for me too, based on what you stated. I can recall, at times really being at my wit's end, right? Like really stretching myself thin and my bandwidth was low and being almost resentful with other people about all the things I had to do this week that put me in this state of depletion, and really getting clear with myself about who forced you to do those things, Tanisha. Like you chose to say yes to your friend, yes to your mate, yes to your child, yes to your manager, yes to, you chose to say yes and sign up for all of those commitments. And then once you went when you went along to honor those commitments and now you became depleted, you're silently resentful of all the people who you said yes to. When they did ask, right? They said, do you think you can do this? Or would you be able to do that? And I just said, yes, 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 yes. Right. And so, sis, I mean, I really appreciate you mentioning that because it's a dichotomy, right? That idea of being the people pleaser who doesn't want to offend, right? And then the other side of that is being the person who becomes offended, right? Because we all have that duality at some point, right? You might be the person who becomes offended. Just to add to that, right? It says there have been times when I've been offended because I depleted myself to help someone else. And then when they asserted their boundaries and I then needed help and they said, oh, I can't do it, sis, today because I'm tired.
Oh, yes.
Right? Or I don't have the capacity to get that done.
Yes.
I'm offended, right? I'm offended because I always overextend when in actuality, the balance is exactly what you stated. It says, learning to not be offended when others assert their boundaries and live the way they choose to. And then also recognizing that I hold and reclaim the power to be able to do the same so that I'm not ever resentful of others for decisions that I made for myself. So I love everything about what you shared. Thank you for that. Yeah. I'll share. And Brother Truth?
Peace and blessings, family. How are you?
Blessings.
Wow. This is it's actually multifaceted. For my brain is like doing this thing right now. So what I'm gonna start off with is the first thought that downloaded was we're not our bodies, nor our souls. We're spirits or thoughts of the Most High. And then from there, I'm just gonna put it out there. And then from there, I went to we present ourselves as either male or female in this particular realm of things made manifest. And the way that is determined is we receive a certain number of chromosomes from our fathers, a certain from our mothers. So we are a combination, or shall I say, the physical form is a combination of the energy that the spirit beings that is within the physical forms of our mother and our father produces to be in harmony with us coming into this reality, to actually manifest the thought of the Most High that we are here to manifest. And from there, I go, the thought comes to the fundamental element of society is family. And what we are born into is family. And from family inside of the society that we have been born into, and I want to emphasize the phrase society. We were born into a society that is actually not our own. And everything that we are expressing and experiencing is abnormal to us.
Yes.
Yes.
Ashe.
Yeah.
And it's very important that we remember and constantly carry with us at this stage of the journey that everything and every idea that we experience outside of the downloads from the Most High that we are actually here as spirit beings to implement are not our own.
Ashe.
They're actually foreign. And so everything we're speaking about is actually foreign. And that's why we're speaking about it. But it's normal for us to look as close to us as we can. And when we look as close to us as we can, we're going to look at our parents, not the true source of the actual problem.
Right.
The true source of the problem is after we're born into a family, into this family structure that we were taught about, because we haven't been taught about the family structure of our ancestors. We were taught about the family structure of a foreign being to us, to the Most High. He's foreign. And so from being born into that family, the mother and the father, that means we're born into what we call the home structure. And that home structure that we learned is not normal. We didn't learn the home structure of the balance of masculine and feminine.
Right.
We learned the actual structure of the slave master. So everything that we have witnessed through our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents have been a duplication of the master, the slave master. It has not been a duplication or a representation or a replication of a father or a mother.
No.
We haven't learned yet fundamentally what a father is, what a mother is, what an auntie is, what an uncle is. We haven't learned those things in the proper environment. We've learned those things spiritually because those beings that have been ordained by the Most High to come and remind us and to reintroduce us to that have been doing it, even so within a foreign environment. And it has been challenged every step of the way. So from the home structure of the foreigner, we were introduced into a social structure. Usually the first one was the church for us as melanated people. And from the church, it was the school / college. But these were institutions that were implemented by the foreigner for the express purpose of maintaining mastery over the original people. And from there, home, church, school / college, we went into work, another societal environment that maintained the exact same structure. Brother James has been stating and stating and stating within these last several months that this is not natural. This rat race that we're in is not. His soul has been calling for something different. And he is ordained to express and to manifest something different, which is a thought of the Most High. So he's been basically letting us know from the Most High through that vessel is saying, this is not natural. This is not normal. So again, I want to emphasize us, then our parents, then our grandparents, then our great-grandparents, then our great-great-grandparents, and so on and so forth. This has been something that has been embedded, and we say it, we're breaking general, but I don't know if we really understand the extent
of what we're breaking
and the veracity of what we're actually facing. Because a lot of times we'll say big brother, we'll say the government, we'll say the man, we'll say all these other adjectives instead of being very specific and saying, what are we actually facing here? What are we actually battling here? We're not battling something that our parents put onto us. Our parents had something put onto them that they were not necessary. It wasn't, everything is being done in stages. The Most High does things very mathematically. So the Most High has been bringing us out from under this particular type of captivity. And so now we're at a stage of having the opportunity to be fully free. Not halfway, not part way. And I apologize because I'm being long-winded. However, this is just the way the download came from listening and observing. It's like, okay, yes, our parents express themselves in certain ways, but we have to understand why. Because if we don't understand why, then we're blaming them for something that is actually not their fault. We actually have to lift them up and say, okay, in this stage of upliftment, what role did they play?
Right.
And even now, if we look at ourselves, We're dealing with sacred relationships and sacred union. The fundamental aspect of that is masculine and feminine. Each one of us, we are present in this reality in one or the other, physical forms. But we know that we are actually the epitome of both. But the physical form has the capacity to express one dominantly and one passively. So which form are we presenting ourselves within, and what is the responsibility in the particular form that we're within to express? Now, what part of this form that we're in did we get from our mother and our father, the 24 and 24? Which part has a necessity to manifest itself right now in its full capacity?
Yeah.
And with that, I yield.
That was quite the download.
Wow.
Like,
wow.
There's just so many reflections, but we're going to go to the chat first because a lot, you were pulling from a lot for a lot of us. So the chat is going off with also branches of the download that you just shared, brother. So Sister Tori said, people pleasing kept me so broken. I was often drained and deeply depressed. So glad I'm moving on the other side. Ashe says, especially, now Sister Tori, for those of us who know and those don't, also just had another baby, new addition to her home. So love hearing that even as mom to an infant, you are finding balance there. Sister Leash said, same brother truth, A and B side for me. Shaw and Dre said, I know people who refuse to take no for an answer. And if you can't do it now, well, when can you? Then when needed, they never have capacity. Relationships lacking reciprocity. Then Sister Simone says, the expectations that come along with motherhood or womanhood can be too heavy at times. Being equal sometimes is a path to having to carry the weight of others, bad behavior, or poor choices. Ashe, and we can choose not to. Right. So Ashe, lots of emotion drawn from that statement from Sister Simone. See, there's lots of emojis on that, back in that statement. And then Sister Felisa says, they teach us how to be employees in almost every system in this society.
That's what came up.
How about that idea? How about that idea?
As Brother Truth was talking and
working in the system,
talking about the structures of it's taught about, like he said, from the master's structure.
Exactly.
It continues out, but
continuous employees in every space. I love that thought. Not loving in the sense of that it's part of our system, but that reflection, right? And pulling on that idea, pulling it out, bringing it into our consciousness, our awareness. And then Sister Felisa expanded to say, I don't think I really would have understood what Brother Truth speaks about had I not visited the motherland. This is something we have to do. James and I have not done this. And it is a need for us as well. I now have a deeper understanding of what they did and continue to do to our people. With knowledge comes great responsibility. Ashe.
Ashe. Let me just touch on really quick. So yes, because we have to go there, right? And be there and touch it and see what's going on. And as Sister said, for me, even when Brother Truth was talking about how like this has been something that has been on my spirit about what's normal and what's not normal. We're not meant to live this way. And every day, the Most High gives me the vision to recognize in so many moments that this is not normal. This is why that's happening. We're not meant to live like this. Seeing people's trauma, seeing what they're going through, understanding that society is giving this to us. And I understand more and more in my spirit that it's not sitting right because it's not normal. I believe, as Brother Truth said, like the Most High has connected me to that thought. And the motherland, even though physically we have not been there, we are attached and connected
energetically
to it as we are going.
And will be more so even, right? When we
touch on
we
it,
could touch land. Absolutely. Ashe to these ideas. And then Sister Letitia, Brother Warren said, come on, Brother Truth. And Sister Constance with the word. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Yeah, that was a powerful, powerful belt.
Yes.
And Sister Joycelyn, I believe we saw your hand up as well. Feel free to unmute and speak into the call, sis. What was the download for you?
Good evening, everyone.
Mm.
I'm a little overwhelmed, but in a good way. That's why I lowered my hand, because I don't know if I know how to articulate what's going on in my mind. Not to hold everyone up, but I guess I'm gonna be jumping all over the place, so forgive me.
We're following you, rocking, we rolling.
With the motherland comments and expressions. With me being Ghanaian, I have to say, like, it is like an honor and a privilege, being like an African child, because every time I do go back home, like, you see, even I was gonna say, every time I do go back to Ghana, automatically all the time, I always feel like I'm home. Like more so than in the States. And but mind you, I was born here. I'm only first generation American. But every time I go back, it's something that really touches your spirit deeply. Like, you just feel like this is it. Even like with modernization and being influenced by Western society that is still going on there, but there's a difference. Um, you know, and a lot of people that I know that have gone to Ghana and visited, they also feel like, like it's such a beautiful place, and it's like they also have that sentiment. So I do agree, everybody should go back. It'll be a wonderful experience. And we always have a saying of Akwaba, which is like, welcome, and everyone is welcome there. So much so that's why they had the visas for, like, hey, anybody African American that wants to come, you come on down, like, no worries, or like, have any issues like getting your visas to go there. But anyway, so I just wanted to say that. But to kind of go back to everything that's being said and listening to the wounded masculine and the wounded feminine energy, I was like, wow, I must overall be wounded because I'm like, oh, I identify with both sides, overwhelmingly so. Uh let's see. Um I okay, I'm just trying to get my words.
Take your time. Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, more so from like my father and everything, is a suppression of emotions and being heard. So I was always very meek and quiet my whole life, to the point that I was more of a watcher than a participant in everything. So I would learn a lot through, even up to this day. I guess it's something, if since time immemorial, in this lifetime, when you're like that, it's hard to break it.
Yeah.
So like even now, it's like I sit back and instead of really participating, I watch and I see how people move and, like pick up on cues and everything like that, in order for me to find when I'm comfortable to say something, which I guess it's an example of what's happening this evening, where I was like, I'm listening to everybody, I'm trying to take it all in, and I'm trying to see where I can fit my commentary in. So I dealt with that, and I still do. And even in the chat, I don't remember if it's the women's group or the main group, where I said, like, since I turned 30, like I cry at everything, even commercials. And I think it's been a accumulation of holding everything in, And I guess it's like my psyche, my being is like, we can't do it anymore. Like, you know, so it's kind of like, you know, I'm like all of a sudden, like, why am I crying? I'm so happy. I'm crying. I'm sad. I'm crying. I'm angry. I'm crying. I'm tired. I'm crying. You know, and it's kind of like, I guess it's so much energy that I would suppress that it's like I need that energy release of the tears. So I looked at that with the wounded masculine. I'm just like going on the screen because I was like, yes, yes. I was like, wait a minute, where do I fall here? Lack of emotional validation, I'm going back and forth with the wounded feminine. It's like almost not knowing if how I'm feeling is a valid emotion or not. It all depends on the feedback I would get from other people, you know. And I was like, you know, it's like now at my age, it's less of that. But definitely I was thinking about when I was younger, and I'm like, that's true. It's like I would know how I would feel, but I needed people to tell me. So I'm like, okay, so I'm not, you know, off course. Then being the man of the house. A lot of the females in my family are that. We have so many women in the family and barely any men. And relationships have not been good. And this is even going back to my great great grandmother on my mother's side. You know, and like it's always like they've been hurt or cheated on or mistreated by their spouses. It's like from back then all the way down to my sister before me, you know, with divorces and breakups and everything. And I think that so every woman has been strong in the sense of being like the man of the house, like being the breadwinner, making sure everything's taken care of. You know, I joke because I don't have a good relationship with my father, but I joke that my grandma is my mom and my mom is my dad. You know, because it's like they raised me, and my grandma is more of like the mother figure type, you know, nurturer. But my mom also too, like to me, she's like what a dad should be, you know, because she still has that, but she's the breadwinner. She goes to work, you know, she's the head of the household and all that stuff. So I guess it's trickled down to me, but in both ways where I'm the one that everybody comes to for everything, emotional support, mental support, advice, even though like I'm not blessed yet to have children or have been in a relationship, but people will always come to me asking me for advice. I'm like I have all the experience. You know, so it's like, and I'm always the one. Even I get happy Mother's Day from my nieces and nephews, like, you know, it's like being like maternal figure that way. Then on top of that too, I'm the one who, you know, fixes the cars, builds everything in the house, everything that needs to be built. I do it, you know. I sit there and like if people are like, oh, like I'm the one who shovels out like the snow, you know, like park cars, they even do it for my neighbors, you know. So it's like I'm that masculine, to the point that if I have to be honest, like even now I'm like, I don't have time like for men and their BS, which is not fair, but it's from what I've seen my whole life, you know, so it's kind of like I don't have time for it. Like, you know, and it's kind of like if I am in a relationship, this is what it has to be, or I'm like, that's it, you know, like, and I guess it's like setting strong boundaries, but it's a little bit too forceful sometimes. So that's why I'm like, yeah, I am kind of like the man in the house. And you know, then going back to wounded feminine, I'm just going down the list. Gender inequality is like, yeah, even though, you know, I have a lot of strong women that take on like these masculine roles, to be honest, you know, in African households, that is, well, I can't say that. I'll say it's kind of tribal, right? Like from the tribe that my parents are from, it is that way where the women are kind of like they're the ones, the Gan women are the ones that like go out to make their wares and sell it and bring like the money home and everything. So they're kind of like, so the Gadangbe women are the ones that are like, you know, I got to do what I got to do. Like, you know, whereas like the Ashanti women are the ones that are allowed to be soft because the men are like, we take care of everything. That is my queen. That's my goddess. Like, you know, whatever she wants, I give. Like, you know, so it's like the difference in the tribes. It's very interesting. So I always sit down like, dang, why couldn't we be Ashanti instead of Gadangbe? But it's fine. You know, so dealing with that inequality too, you know, and I guess like it's only until recently that I realized that I've always rebelled slightly. Whereas I'm the one in the family with tattoos and piercings and stuff like that. And I feel like it all started with people saying, oh, women shouldn't, or you shouldn't do this. And I'm just like, you know what? Now I will do it. You know, and it's like even to the point like I remember how many times I've shaved my head and like dyed my hair and stuff. And it was like, no, because I want to, you know, like it's like a start over for me, whatever. Because I dealt with it and was like a bit much that I didn't realize that it's like I would start rebelling against that. Being hyper vigilant. I am extremely hyper vigilant, and I think it goes back to, you know, not being told like to be quiet or whatever and not really expressing yourself. You're kind of forced to sit there and look at your surroundings. It's like even to the point where I'm sorry if I'm going on for too long, but even to the point where even at work, they thought that my favorite drink was Snapple because I will always have a Snapple bottle. But it's me being kind of paranoid, you know, like being a woman that would like work late. I used to work late hours. So, you know, you're not allowed to hold weapons because if you attack somebody, you know, it's illegal, blah, blah, blah. So I always had a Snapple bottle as a form of protection. I would drink my Snapple and I'll hold it throughout the day because it's like I'll be hyper vigilant and paranoid. If I have to protect myself, you know, I have my bottle. Now Snapple is not made out of glass, it's plastic now, but you know, that's what it is. So they thought, oh, she loves Snapple. So they bought me like a case of Snapple. And I'm like, oh, I really don't, but thank you so much. And then looking at the lack of affirmative male role models, going back to again the history of my family being mostly female, but any male in our lives weren't really good. I can't say, it's not fair to say not good men, but maybe weren't compatible with the women that were in our lives and chose to make certain decisions that didn't lead to positive outcomes. And then I look also too, like, yes, I definitely witnessed domestic struggles and I do deal with a lot of victimhood with why me, but then I also do take on a lot of things onto myself. And I think too, when I go back to when I first met you guys at the Rock Lodge event, and I asked you guys about trust, I have to sit there a lot. It's like, yeah, I think I feel like I don't trust people because ultimately I don't trust myself. And I'm really working hard on trying to do that because I still feel like I need validation, like on my spiritual gifts, or if I'm smarter, if I'm pretty, you know, it's like it's like I'll feel that way. Yeah. But when I'm around other people, I'm like, do I really feel that way? Like I need people to like validate me. So it's like all this to say that I feel like it's not one or the other. Yeah. It's both for me. And that's where it's like really hard to try to understand myself, you know, because there's just like so many wounds overall. And I guess it's like when I reflect and I look at these things and people talk about generational curses, and a lot of people like you might be the one to break it because you're the one who sits there. And I guess with, you know, always being a thinker and a watcher, you're realizing something is not right. Okay. And something is off. And you're like, I need to figure out how to change this. Because again, I'm sorry to go off on random, directions, but it reminded me of like one Thanksgiving I cook. I usually am the one to cook, like period, for Thanksgiving. And one Thanksgiving I was doing renovations in the home and I was also cooking. And my family ended up being like, okay, we'll be back, and spent hours at like my godmother's house. So it like broke me when I was like throwing out furniture, breaking out furniture and throwing it out the dumpster. And it's like, I remember I fell outside and there were men there and nobody was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? They kind of just looked and walked. And I'm like, you see, this is why men are useless. It's like, you see that I fell, but you don't even care. Like, and it's like I'm limping because I hurt my back and I went to go throw out the stuff, but then I go home and then I'm cooking. I'm like, look at me slaving over the kitchen for my family. And it's like it's already late and nobody's back because they're having a good time at my godmother's house. And it's like I remember that Thanksgiving of 2019, I broke. And I don't know if I like put a curse on myself or what, but it was like so much anger and frustration. And I remember crying and I was like, that's it. I'm not doing anything in this house. I'm not doing this anymore. That's it. And it's like literally for 5 years, I've been struggling to get the momentum of like taking care of the home and cooking and everything. It's like I kind of lost it. And I was like, man, like, did I kind of curse myself without realizing it?
Well, you
Because
know
it's
what?
like I completely broke.
At the end of the day, you having the level of awareness
Yeah.
that you have, there are some comments here for you in the chat, right? Having the awareness is how you know you are chosen.
Yes.
Because there will be people, to your point, right, who are in that experience that don't recognize that it doesn't feel comfortable in their body or in their spirit. And they're just going along to get along the same way each day. Having the awareness means tag, you're it.
Right.
So in the chat, Sister Felisa said, I feel you, Sis Joycelyn. And she also said the responsible one, chosen, set aside, breaking the chain, right? All synonymous. And then Brother Truth, this is the constant, said, being fifth or sixth generation removed from our native land and culture, plus the impact of slavery, we feel totally removed, totally disconnected. And yet this is the plan of the oppressor. I love the intention and the emphasis on the words. We must overstand the world society that we presently live within versus the one which we are destined to manifest. Powerful.
Powerful, Ashe.
Chandra said the wound is the place where the light enters you. Ashe.
Yes. Wow.
Ashe.
Wow.
And that's exactly what Brother Truth is the constant said today.
Wow.
Ashe. Brother Warren, Sister Letitia said, wow, what a beautiful share, Sister Joycelyn.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, beautiful.
Giving thanks for that,
Wow.
sis.
There's so much in there. There was
so much in it.
Right.
And the overwhelming download that kept coming to me around what you were sharing, sis, was this idea of attraction, right? So if we are the people, right, whether it be male or female, right, but we're saying, but let's talk wounded feminine. If we are or wounded masculine, if we are women who are operating in a space of wounded masculine, right, and we are hyper vigilant, or we are, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I don't need, I can do it. And then we find ourselves being resentful of those who see us operating in the I can do it energy, and they let us do it. Right? So we're saying, we don't need you. We can do it. We can do it. And then we're saying, why didn't you see I needed you? Because I can't do it. Right? Or even if I can, I want help doing it. So it's having that level of consciousness, right? To say, if you want to be a woman who's operating in her divine femininity and attract a man who is operating in his divine masculinity, then we have to be conscious of what attracts those two beings, right? So if I am a woman who is operating in toxic masculinity, how likely am I to find a man who's operating in his divine masculinity? Is he attracted to that, right? Is that going to be the attraction? So if I desire, this is how you know what you are when we talk about core femininity or core masculinity, because we are all entitled to choose what this is for us, right? So I am a woman, using myself as an example, I am a woman who desires to be core feminine. So I also desire to have a man in my experience that is core masculine. If I am in my survival mode and I am operating in my control and my masculinity, it's fine for me to do that. But then I need to be mindful and be thinking about the idea that I am not attracting in that moment a divine masculine man, because he will not naturally be attracted to that element within me. Right. And then and vice versa. If I am a woman who I can do it, and then I wonder why I attract partners into my life who allow me to do it all, or I'm always having to do it all. There is something I am doing to attract that experience, right? And so it's interesting, you know, because sometimes we enter relationships in our survival mode, right? You can be a woman who is operating in her survival mode and attract a man, and he is in his feminine. He's in his feminine, right? So he is laid back, letting you do it all. And now you may be having a desire to change that, right? Perhaps now you're shifting into your femininity and you want to have more of a ease and flow in your life. Well, now you got to think about, do you want to change the relationship you chose? Right. And the reason I phrase it as, do you want to change the relationship you chose? Because that's what you get to choose. You don't get to change the person you chose, right? So you get to choose whether or not you remain in the relationship, but we don't get to choose whether the person changes now because we did, right? Because we have a new awareness. So all of that was the download that came through for me, and what you were describing, sis, because there are many, many women, and I know you're not, you know this already. I can feel you know it because you describe it when you mention the lineage of women in disconnect, right, with men, right? And you also describe how you witness all these women operating in their survival, right, and their struggle, operating honestly in their masculine. It's going to repel the masculine then, right? And you are going to witness and receive into your experience men who just let you do that, who you resent even further, right? And then that's why you get that narrative in your mind of men are useless. They aren't, but you may be attracting men that quite honestly just fall into their feminine because you're in your masculine in that sense. So it's about being aware, because we all get to choose all of this. Everything that's listed under the wounded masculine or the wounded feminine, we get to choose all of this, or we get to choose to be aware of it. So we stop it, we change it, you know, and that's really what this space is about. It's about identifying it so we're not unconscious of it or having it running in our subconscious, but we are conscious of it so that we stop putting our stuff on people. Right? We stop putting it on our partners, stop putting it on our family members. It's no one else's experience, it's ours. So I really give thanks for your share, Sister Joycelyn. It was so layered.
It was so,
we could go on for days in what you shared. So give thanks.
There was so much.
Thank you.
And lots of backup in the chat here. Sister Sheree said, thanks for sharing, Joycelyn. And Brother Truth and Sister Constance said, absolute truth. Yeah.
I mean, just really quick, and because there was really so much in there. It can be a whole discussion from just how much that was said. So one, please never apologize, sister, for sharing what is intended to be shared. Because I'm sure so many of us, as you see, pull messages from what you're saying. There's definitely no apologies needed. One of the things that stuck out for me really quick was when she talked about the tribes and how her tribe was different compared to the other tribe with Ashanti, where the women were able to be in their softness, right? And it made me think about, you know, here in our environments, it's similar, right? Because it's not tribal, it's dependent on what
systemic.
Correct. You know, and you can sit and look at, like you just talked about, with choices, but you know, in my household, as a woman or man or whichever, I was not able to be in my softness, because in this household, I needed to be this, right? But when do you get to a point where you understand this was what you needed to be at that time in that household, but you have the choice to be what you are truly intended to be.
That's right.
Right? In your truth.
Once you know.
Right. And that's what this work is really about, is being able to understand who you are meant to be, and stand in your truth so you can be what you organically feel you should be.
Ashe.
You know, but there's so much to it. But yeah.
Ashe.
Thank you for those shares, sister.
Yes. It was so layered. It was a great journey for us all to go down. And so as we look at this idea of the impact on individuals versus the impact on relationships, right? Because for many of us, we're looking at this whole experience of sacred relationships book study, right? In terms of how it relates in our partnerships or maybe in our relationships with others. And, recognizing for all of us is going to start with our relationship with ourselves. And so if you're here in this space, really just to focus on that, you're still in the right space, right? So the impact on self, the impact on individuals shows up in emotional distress, because anytime we are operating in what is resistance to our true self, it shows up as emotional distress. So as much as Tanasia, let's say, wants to be ambitious, if she takes on more than what she can emotionally and spiritually handle for herself, then that ambition can easily become emotional distress. So I have to be conscious of how I utilize my time and how I free up my time also to just be, right? So that's that emotional stress, just using myself as an example. Self-esteem issues. The impact on individuals can also show up as self-esteem issues. If you feel like the modeling, let's say, I don't know, as a man even, right? Let's say the modeling in your life has been strong men who you never saw cry. You never saw them doubt themselves out loud. They didn't show their vulnerability. Well, when you're experiencing vulnerability inside, you may be ashamed of that.
Yes.
You may think that this makes you less of a man, less masculine, because you never witnessed others do it openly and out loud. It could show up as difficulty in expressing emotions, personal identity crisis, where maybe other people are telling you who you should be, right? Brother Truth talked about, going to college and, having the traditional, or let's call it the quote unquote American dream. Is that your dream?
Right.
Is that your dream? Or is it, a dream that someone sold to you in order to keep you in the matrix, to the point that Sister Felisa made? Or is it just you're trying to people please and keep others proud of you, or telling a positive story about you? Are you in a personal identity crisis because you are not who you actually, you're not showing up authentically in your own life experience, and you feel it.
Yep.
Reproductive and health challenges. When we store blockages, emotional imbalances in the body, it becomes dis-ease. That is all disease is dis-ease in the body. We've heard it all the time, right? When you see someone and they're 97 years old and they've got great skin and they're still, getting around and doing their thing, you're like, what is the answer? They're like, I don't let anything stress me.
Right.
Right? Like, let's make it plain. If you continuously put your body through stress and contention all the time, you're going to experience health challenges.
Yep.
It also shows up in creative blockages. Have we watched the movies back in the 80s and 90s of people taking sabbaticals? Remember that? Remember when that word was like a thing? I don't know.
Right.
Sabbaticals, where they leave and they go live on the land so that they can just reconnect with their creativity, and they write books and they do art. Why do you have to leave your life to do that, right? How do you create space so that you are not so busy that you can actually just be, so that creativity is unlocked within you? So those are the emotional impacts as an individual. Then there's the impacts on relationships. You're bringing all your wounded masculine, all your wounded feminine stuff in, or the balance of both, right? As Sister Joycelyn showed us, and it shows up like communication breakdown. Right? Because I'm not clear about who I am and which energy is speaking for me today, but I want to argue with you.
Right.
That is breakdown. I'm making my stuff your fault. Because I haven't processed it. Intimacy issues, not being able to be intimate whether we're not just talking physical, right? All layers of intimacy, but not being able to show up and be present and intimate with the people who we would like to be because we're rooted in all our struggle and all our stuff. Unable to offload it so that we can just be present in the moment and enjoy each other. Right? It shows up that way. Reproductive challenges, role expectations. Oh, because I'm doing all these things, I have an expectation that these are the things you're supposed to do. Did your partner sign up to do those things? Did you take on a bunch of responsibilities and assume that it would all be shared and balanced? And was that spoken about with the person who you like to share it with? Right? Just let's make it plain. Let's make it plain. We've all heard, if not been there, in situations where perhaps a couple has been talking about whether or not they want to have more children, right? And maybe one partner wants to have another child, and one partner is like, I really don't think that's in the cards for me, right? But then somehow down the line they make an agreement. 10 years later, the child is now 10 years old, and one parent is burnt out, right? From all the things they need to do and feeling like this other person should be showing up and doing. Was the agreement really, truly there in the beginning? Did this person sign up in the way that you signed up? What was the balance or imbalance in that experience? And there's so many scenarios like that, right? But expectations is a big issue if we're not clearly communicating, so that we really get clear about what we want versus what someone else wants in our life experience together. Parenting challenges, creative partnerships. So you name it, conflict resolution, whatever it is, it all comes down to going back again. Are you showing up as the wounded masculine? Because if you are, you're not going to get the results you're looking for from your feminine, right? From your feminine counterpart. Are you showing up as a wounded feminine? Then you're not going to get what you're being honest with yourself about where you are in terms of these things, so you don't bring them to the table for discussion with other people. You're not blaming them for your stuff. Here, I'm just going, because this is the thought that's coming into my mind, and I don't know why or who it's for, right? But even in the life experiences, I'm just going to use women because that's what I can relate to most, right? In the feminine experience, a woman who's been hurt by her male partner, right? Perhaps he's broken her heart in some way, because that's the language we use, as if someone else can break your heart, like it's not ours to hold. But they've broken your heart in some way. And now you are on a journey of seeking emotional validation from that person. You want them to understand exactly what you're going through, understand exactly how they contributed to it. And it's an endless journey, and you don't ever feel like they're there yet. And they never understand, what you're feeling and how it impacted you and how it has changed you. You are on a road to nowhere, because the person may very likely never truly understand or understand where you are.
Right.
It's really about you looking at what occurred and taking your personal lesson from it and allowing your partner to take their personal lesson from it. Your lessons don't have to mirror each other. There could be, James and I, speaking very transparently, we've had our own relationship challenges, right? And come to a road where we had to understand James will not understand my heartbreak in any of it. And I may not understand his decision-making in his choices, right? But what we each need to understand is why it showed up, why this scenario showed up for us both. What did I learn from it? And what did he learn from it? And does it make us better now? As individuals and as partners? Because if we want to meet a crossroad of he fully understands how I feel and I fully understand his whys, it will go on forever. It will go on forever. His lesson is his lesson. My lesson is my lesson. And it's about what does that now contribute to us being better people individually, so we can be better even together.
Right. Well said.
So with that said, now we're going to open it back up, and we're going to start passing the mic a little bit before we close out. Our study prompts: reflecting on your manhood, your womanhood, and how it has been shaped by your life experiences, by society's expectations and personal beliefs. Have you ever felt wounded in your sense of self based on your perceived roles of manhood or womanhood, right? And you can describe your experience. The other study prompt is, are there past wounds or experiences that you believe may have contributed to creative, emotional, or psychological blocks for yourself? So that's some of the homework, and we'll drop that in the chat too, right? We talked about the challenges here. And then lastly, there's another assignment here. And again, these will be in our chat. Writing a letter to yourself. Write a letter forgiving yourself for things that you've had to learn or unlearn. I know that for me, the journey has been big in the unlearning. So things that you've learned or unlearned through your life experiences. Thank yourself for the courage and fortitude needed to withstand the lessons and apply them moving forward. And then write a letter to someone else, expressing your gratitude for the experiences you've shared. Acknowledge your own part and express your acceptance of the lessons. You know, whether or not you choose to give that letter to the person is up to you. It's not a part of the assignment, right? It's more about writing the letter so that you have clarity and you release, the thoughts. But if you like to give it to that someone, that's fine. If you like to burn it, that's fine too. But there's value in getting clear. I know that even James and I, like the friendship side of our relationship, we've talked about like experiences in prior relationships, right? And even the worst of relationships that you've had in your past came to teach you valuable lessons about yourself, right? There's lessons in every part of our life experience. So writing a letter, even let's say to someone who's no longer in your life experience, maybe you have no intention of sharing it with them, but just to release it, to say, no matter how terrible I thought this situation is, these are the ways that it has made me better. And I am grateful. I thank you for showing me that I needed to trust myself more. I thank you for showing me that when I saw the red flag up front and I ignored it, that it could land to my own suffering, right? Because I saw it and I ignored it, right? Whatever it is, find the gratitude in the hardship.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is not just for, relationships with a spouse. I mean, this is with anybody, friendships, mother, father, siblings. I think that's the biggest thing, is always being able to, because it's so emotional, whatever you're going through, do you take the time to find out what's the lesson for you? Right. And that understanding of there's a lesson in it for the other person, and there's a lesson in it for me. The lesson doesn't have to be my lesson, is not for the other person, so I think that was well said what you said. And I believe writing this down, and you always say this about journaling.
Yeah, journaling is my jam, y'all know,
right? to write it down, or for myself, who I'm not the most person that loves to write, verbally saying it to myself in a voice note or something, to just let it out. It actually really does something for you to release that, and to actually forgive yourself for certain things, because it was meant to happen the way it happened.
That's right.
And you have to be thankful for the lessons that come from it, because nothing in what I truly believe myself is, nothing happens to break you.
That's right.
The Most High is sending you things because it's a message. Sometimes they're harsh, like you always say, right? I have to
human
learn
design is harsh reality,
right?
School of hard knocks.
My lessons have to be hard, or I won't get it. But the understanding of these messages show up not to break me, to understand it's a lesson, that keeps me motivated to understand, okay, I want to know what the lesson is. And each time I heal a piece of myself, I evolve a piece of myself, I grow with that. And then if you are in a relationship, as you grow and you learn your lessons, you're growing together as well.
That's right. That's right. That's right. The other thing we would share is that in terms of homework in the book, right? So in the Alchemy of Shadow Work, the first chapter is on confronting the fear of vulnerability. So again, there's a meditation, we'll drop it in the chat too, that you can listen to daily just to see, because that'll be what we focus on. Each week, we will focus on one foundational item at a time. So this week it is vulnerability in the space of understanding and uncovering the wounded sides of ourselves, whether it's masculine or feminine energy or both. And then in this chapter, in confronting the fear of vulnerability, there's a prayerful intention that you can state each day. There's also a reflection about vulnerability, journal prompts there. Feel free to do them together or alone. There's affirmations to speak as well. And the thing that I love the most, and I know even last season that we got a lot of value out of, was the nature experience.
Yes.
The nature experience. So every single chapter has an exercise, and it's going to take some effort because we're busy people, right? But it means carving out a piece of time where you can actually go outside and take care of your own natural connection to all that is around us, because we are not in nature, we are of nature, right? So there's a nature experience, and it'll step you through both a guided meditation as well as what to do while you're outdoors in order to embody a sense of vulnerability. So like I said, it could be done together or apart, and that's the homework for this week too. Now, the reason why this is a very layered experience, there's prompts, there's letters, there's nature experiences, is because the idea is for you to do the thing that you gravitate to,
Right.
do the thing that you're feeling nudged to do. If you can't get it all done, that's fine, right? This is a non-judgmental space. It's about grace and just effort. I think what you'll recognize is that as you free up time to do one, over the few weeks, you'll start to free up time to do another. And then you'll start to figure out which things are really your niche go-to for your healing when you need it. So it's intentionally layered in that sense.
Right, right. Just really quick, we've talked about this with, even on our King's Call, we talk about finding the time, right? Because I love that. Even last week on the call that we had, the King's Call, the brothers shared a lot about some of the brothers that's been doing the work, and those that came on that understood that they didn't do the work, right? I thought it was such it was a truth moment. There was a couple of brothers that really stood in their truth of, listen, this time around, I'm going to commit to the work because I saw last time I didn't commit to it. And I understand how it made me feel. When I was connected and I was learning and I was growing, I felt this way. I disconnected, I stopped, and I understand why I'm still in the same position that I was before because I didn't commit to certain things. And, the part of this is making yourself a priority. Life is busy. Again, I won't go back into why life is so busy because it's not the way it's supposed to be, right? But these things we would naturally have been doing in our true normal world, organically, right? Spending time in nature. That's part of our day in the world that we're supposed to live in, is being in nature. And while you're there, you can self-reflect and do these things. But because that is not our normal world right now, we have to take time to make this a reality so that our inner self, that our spirit that is trying to attach back to what we're supposed to be, has the time to do so. So you have to make yourself a priority, just like you make anything else, your job or anything else a priority. Take time for yourself and make yourself a priority as well, to attach. So that's why it's really.
Ashe, I think that was perfectly added because, and I like that you said take the time. Right? Because finding it and taking it are two different things, right? Taking the time is that's like reclaiming your time, right?
It's exactly
saying, if I have built a life where I don't have time to do the things that serve me and my spirit, then there's something that I need to be eliminating on my plate so that I can actually do that. And the other thing that came up for me too, and I wanted to share, especially for those of us that are partnered, who might have a significant other that's also going through the King's experience while we're going through the Queen's experience. James is a Man Heal Thyself, mentor, and I'm also a Sacred Women practitioner. And so we've also done the training, formally through Queen of Fua and Supernova and all of them, right? In terms of how to step through these books. But the reason I mention that is that the two lanes are very different. So for those of us who are partnered, and you may start to recognize that what the men are doing will look different than what we are doing. And this goes back to this idea of the mix of masculine and feminine within us. If you start to feel like you identify with more of what the men are doing, think about it. It calls to the question to say, right, what is it in your experience today that might identify with that more so, or vice versa? Now, and the reason I'm saying that is because the first season we went through, I have Journal Gem, right, which is a separate thing that I was doing initially where it was just sisters and journal prompts. And I've now opened that up to be for both men and women, masculine and feminine, recognizing that there will be men who are looking to soften up some and to be more in flow of their life. And so, recognizing that. And then there may be women who are working on building structure. But if you are a woman who already has a lot of structure, if you are a woman who already, because structure is seen to be a masculine energy, right? We all have it within us, both of these energies. Structure is more masculine. The experience here in the feminine and the divine feminine is for us to learn to be in flow, right? To learn to release the idea of control, release the idea of complete structure always, and to surrender, right? Whereas the male experience may look different. So I just want us to be clear about the why on that, so that if you're partnered and noticing that there's some differences, that it's intended, it is intended. But you mentioning that just made me think of it, So any last reflections before we wrap up? Go to the chat also. Any last reflections? Okay. So as we move into, and if you do have one, feel free to drop it in the chat, or, just to raise a hand or come off mute and let us know, right? But yeah, so this is week 1, wounded masculine, wounded feminine. And so recognizing, and we're going to always remind us that, and I say remind us because we're reminding ourselves as well, that when we open up these portals of discussion, now you're going to start to see this start to unfold, right? So over the next few days, don't be surprised when these things start to kind of show up. You journal them, come back, tell us about it, drop it in the chat, let us take the journey with you. So there's that piece. And lastly, before we wrap, I just want to say a formal hello, because I do recognize that there are some new names in our chat tonight as well. So I see Victor. Shout out to Victor.
That was Brother Anthony.
Brother Anthony.
Hello.
Okay.
How are you doing today?
Greetings. Greetings. Yeah.
Okay, I guess I wanted to acknowledge my presence here. I'm not speaking that much now. I got some dental work going on right now. But I came in late and I did get a chance to listen in, and I really enjoying what I'm hearing. I'm so glad to have found you all and to be able to hear the other family members who we're beginning to share. I know that this is probably the key to our culture, our society, and what have you, to heal and to move forward. And if we're not doing this, if we're not communicating and connecting with each other, we cannot build. So I am just so glad that I found you. I've been praying for this, and as the brother, I don't know whether that was said here tonight, but I was listening to someone who had said that earlier, that when we start to ask for these things, the universe lines up in a way that will start bringing these things to you. And so the beginning with Brother Truth, when we met, it was like I met my brother. And now I found the whole family, just growing and what have you. And I was able to identify with a lot of the things that were said tonight for us, the broken masculinity, broken, and because I mentor a lot of people, especially youth, and I've been doing this for several years, but my government name is Anthony Ezel, but I was married for 35 years and then went through a divorce, and it just broke me. It, destroyed. I didn't even know who I was. It took me 10 years to get to where I am now, and I'm involved with a young lady now that's been a blessing to have her in my life now. It's been 10 years. We've been together 10 years, but um, I have not gotten to the point to where I will ever marry again. And we've discussed
Mm.
this, she's been through some hurts. I've only been in one marriage, but as what happened usually happen with our females, you can end up in a whole lot of relationships, just because there's a whole lot of us creeps out here, you know. You can be, looking. But I look at myself, I've always considered myself coming from a very stable household, my mother and my father. And it's been like that. I was kind of raised in a village. Grandma lived over there, the other grandmother lived over there, my uncle was over there, and my other uncle was across the street. And so I grew up in a family environment, and my mother really has never had to work. My father has always been the provider, and that's what I'm used to. So I grew up with that and expecting that for myself. So even when I got married, I told my wife she didn't have to work. As a matter of fact, I didn't want her to work, but because she was an educated woman and I was an educated man, we both were teachers, and we started out that way. We went on and got our master's degrees and was working on our doctorates. And then it just became an explosion. But our parents can give us some good, wise instructions. Or I think my father was the type of man that didn't necessarily tell you what to do. You had to watch him. You had to watch him. And I do remember him saying one thing that he said. He said, if you ever have to say that you are the head of the household, that means that you are not.
Mm.
And when I got to the place to where I had to say that, I realized it came back to me. It came back to me. It was like, you are not the head of this household.
Mm.
And I found myself having to say that, but this was after 35 years. And I don't believe in divorce. And she told me she didn't believe in divorce, but she was the first one to run. And I was always the type that, because I was raised in a Christian household, I had, I guess, in some way trained myself to believe that the reason why I'm having all these problems is because this is what Christ would have done. I was being, I think I felt like uh, it's supposed to be like this because I'm carrying the cross.
Mm.
It's like I never expected marriage to be easy. And I grew up in a household where my mother, the worst thing my mother has ever said about my father was, he works too much. He needs to come in the house. He was a workaholic, you know. But I looked at that thing and I said, that's a good thing. If that's the only thing you can find as a man, and that's what I was. I worked hard. I worked all the time. And so, but I'm not going to go into all of that. But what I was trying to explain get to a point of you understanding my government name, Anthony Ezel, became, God gave me this name, Victor E.
Okay.
Victor E. And it's because I was so broken. It took me 10 years to get back to where I am today. And it was like, I will not be a victim.
Mm.
I will rise above this. You tried to destroy me. And I will not let that be the last word for my life. So I just took the name on. I shall rise again. I shall rise again. I shall rise again. And, and when the name came to me, Victor, 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 Victor E, Victor, because they call me Mr. E. Even the kids, they call me Mr. E. And when Victor and E got together, I knew this is my name, Victor E. And so that's what I claim. And to have it in my name is a reminder that you shall rise again, because that's the way I felt. I felt like my whole identity was my family. So it was like when that happened, it was like, who are you? I didn't know who I was, but my family, you know, and I was the youngest of 8. And none of us divorced, except for me. I'm the most educated. I'm the only one that got a chance to go to college and finish. And they always thought that, you know, we were just the epitome. Even in the community, they probably thought, I mean, people looked at us as the little power couple, you know, it's like Obama. Yeah. You know, it was like when this divorce happened, it was like, them? I felt it because I was mentoring, and I felt like this can't happen. It's gonna let all of my young boys, they looked up to us. They thought everything was just, you know, everybody have problems and you don't want to put your dirty laundry out in the streets. But when you go through a divorce, and all I've been teaching them is this is how you hold your family together. It's not about money. It's not about this. It's about you pulling that family together. And I taught them the things that my father taught and that my mother taught, you know, pull the family together at the table, you know. Uh, you know, that was the altar. That was where, you know, we got a chance to talk and communicate. And my father just taught me so many things in life. And my father was a very meek man. He was very meek, but we knew who the head was. Everybody knew if Dad said, okay, that's enough now, the room got quiet. That was it. He was not a loud man. He was very meek. And when my wife first met me, she said to me, you need to talk more. You need to, we be in church. Well, you need to speak up, say something. I was meek also. And because she came from a household where her mother was the head of the household. She did not really meet her father until she met her father. I think she was about 10, 11, 12 years old. And her mother told her, that's your daddy. That's when she met her father. Well, I grew up, I knew my mother and my father, and you know, and me being a school teacher, I really felt sad for the children because they did not have what I had. Well, where's your mom? She at work. My mama was always at home. Yeah, I could get her at a moment. That was the blessing that my father gave me. All of us. For my mother to be able to be there when we needed her. She was a strong woman, taking care of us when my dad was out working and taking care of things. And he was the one who took us to church. My dad was the superintendent of the church all my life. So now I see you were really the pastor, the minister of our lives. So long story short, I'm enjoying this. And and as someone else said, there are layers. There are so many layers here until I can't even begin. It's like I have to put a seal on Anthony Stop because I was taught, because it's so much in here that I had to learn. I had to learn, but I didn't learn them until after the divorce. And I went into a very, very dark place. And God had to lead me again, reteach me. And that's how I came out of Christianity. That's how I found Kemet. That's how I found it. You know, I said, what the heck just happened? I couldn't understand. And the only thing I could look, I was looking for truth. And when I found truth, it was like, your name is what?
He literally found truth.
Because that's what I was preaching. I said, I love the scriptures that said, prove all things. And because I had a science background, what that meant was test it. Test it. Look for the truth. And having the history background, I started looking at nature. I said, that's the handprints of God. I said, I'm going to find the truth. The truth shall set you free. And so I've been preaching that and teaching that. I wrote a book, and I haven't published it yet, but that's what it was all about. Finding the truth. And when Truth came and told me his name was Truth, and we were so much alike. He was wearing the Ankh, I was wearing the Ankh. We had on the same hats and whatnot. I said, it was like God said, "This is the one."
That's it. It was
like the Most High wanted to make it that clear to you,
right?
Right.
Yes. He made it very, very clear,
very plain.
Right.
Give thanks.
Give thanks, and Brother Victor, let me just say to you really quick. First, thank you for being here. Thank you for standing in your truth. And I always say, very similar to you saying that you felt lost, right? In order to find ourselves, we must first be lost, right? So your path was your path to find yourself. If you didn't lose yourself, you would have never found the true you. So I'm grateful that you was able to find it. I'm grateful that you're here, and we welcome you.
Ashe. And there's a lot of comments going on regarding everything you were sharing, Brother Victor. So Sister Elise said, I am deeply appreciative for you sharing, Brother Victor. And Brother Warren, Sister Letitia said, come on, Brother Victor. Ashe. Sister Sheree says, love it, claim it, Brother Victor. Melissa says, love it, Brother Victor. I shall rise again. Brother Keita said, thanks for sharing, bro. True Phoenix rise again through the ashes. Ashe. And Sister Alicia said, I know the feeling, so many layers. I'm telling you, this is why it's so important to share, because when we're feeling the nudge, it's not just for us. The nudge is happening in this space because we're being pushed to help give language also to someone else. So we give thanks for that reflection, Brother Victor.
Thank you, Brother.
And we love the intention behind your name. So that's so solid. Brother Colin, Brother Nature.
Everybody, I'm not going to hold it up. I know how it is when the end of the meeting comes and that one person raises their hand at the end.
We hear, brother.
You know what I'm saying? Just that this conversation is very important. That who you are and the existence in your masculine or feminine energy really is a product of your experiences in terms of what you were raised in, who your mother was, who your father was. Heard people talk tonight about what their father did to them or what their mother did to them, not in any kind of physical way, but in terms of just their actions. And we have to acknowledge what their actions were, not to lay blame, but as a way of knowing who the hell we are, right? And it's something I've been toiling with a lot lately, especially in the King's Calls, just knowing where the things that I do come from and why they are either good or bad. Because you made it this far. So to honor your parents and what they've done to get you, what they did to get you here is important, but it's also important to realize the mistakes they made and where they came from, where those mistakes came from, so that you don't repeat them, right? You don't want to repeat those negative things or those things that bring you away from what your divine calling is, whatever that is. Okay, because those are blockages that stop you from being divine. End of the day. So I just wanted to throw that out and thank you for this conversation and very, very important. Appreciate y'all.
Thank you for that, brother.
Yeah, and it's so true. And I like that you stated, because it's not to blame.
Right.
It's to either learn or unlearn. It's so true. while Brother C was actually saying that, the visualization that came to mind for me was, it's like if you're driving and, God forbid, right? But you witness an accident up ahead, but you sit in that moment of saying, oh, wow, I hope everyone's okay. I pray that they're all okay. But then the secondary, thought is, wow, because you saw the accident happen up ahead, you get to now take a reroute and avoid the accident for yourself.
Right.
And so it's like when we talk about shame, blame, to Brother Colin's point, when it comes to our parents, even their perceived missteps or their perceived errors or their perceived mistakes are all in divine order.
Right.
Because we get to see them and how the outcomes are for them, we get to now do it differently. Even if we witness it as an accident, we get to now prevent the accident, and reroute.
Right.
And so I really love that you brought that reflection forward, Brother Colin, because we get to learn through our parents. And many indigenous belief systems, and I say that versus religion because there's different belief systems and there's religions, it is believed that we choose our parents. So that in some of the practices where they believe you get to come back again and again, the idea is that you have learned something in your past life or unlearned something in your past life, and you're here again to recreate it. And you get to choose the vessel that's going to best fortify that part of you. So if we think about the idea that we may have chose our parents, let's say, and all of whatever the missteps were, whatever the hardships were, whatever the tough lessons were, we chose them in order to fortify our blessings and to fortify who we become. How much gratitude can we then rest in, right? For being able to experience what we do. We can just be grateful.
Yes.
Sister Kavita says, as you are the chosen one, your parents are the chosen one to bring in the chosen one. There's alignment. Right? This is what we're saying.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for giving that language. All right, y'all.
You were saying other people that.
Oh, yes. Others in the chat were.
No, and the new people.
Yes, new people were saying, you're right. Thank you for that. So we wanted to formally welcome on some of the newer names we had in here. It looks like maybe some have dropped. Let me just keep going. So I did see Sister Ashlyn was on also. So we'll message her, and everyone else who is on today either has already been recognized and introduced in for the new season or has also been on for the last. So powerful share and build as always, family. You know that on Thursday we'll be meeting again, and that discussion will be based on sacred woman for the queens and
man heal us up
for the kings. And
listen, I love this because I always say it's the dialogue, it's the talk and the interaction in community. Again, this is what we were meant to do. Thank you all for sharing, because you can see through the shares is when the messages come. So we thank you for that. And we will close as we always close, which again is to recall and repeat. So if you can unmute, I will say the words again and we'll repeat it as we close. So if anybody that wants to say it with us, please unmute.
Yeah.
All right. I am grateful for the insights gained.
I am grateful
for the insights
gained.
I carry the strength of our community with me.
I
carry the strength of our community
with me.
I continue my journey with love and purpose.
I continue my journey with love and purpose.
Until we meet again in gratitude and growth.
Until
we meet again
in
gratitude and growth.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Have a great week, family.
Blessings, family.
Peace and
Blessings, family.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Well,
Yeah.